I never planned to stay long that afternoon, just a coffee, maybe read a few pages of the paperback stuffed in my backpack. The cafe wasn't even my regular place. Too quiet, too grown up. A place where people ordered tea with honey instead of fraps, where the music was soft enough that you could hear someone stirring sugar. She was already there when I walked in. Corner table, by the window. A hardcover in her hands, jacket sleeve folded back so the title was hidden. Her hair was pulled up, not neatly, just out of the way. She looked like she belonged there, like this was her cafe, her hour, and the rest of us were passing through. I took the table diagonal from hers. Not too close, not too far. Close enough to watch without looking like I was watching. My coffee came. I tore the sugar packet in half, then in half again. Useless habit. I should have texted someone, but my phone screen was blank. No new messages. I turned it over face down. Her book slipped. Just slid right off her lap and landed on the floor between us. She didn't bend immediately. She just looked at me, almost amused, as if the moment had been waiting there for her to use. "Pick it up," she said. Then, softer, leaning a little forward, "if you dare." It was nothing. A joke. But my chest tightened in that stupid way it does when you're 20 and the air around someone suddenly feels charged. I picked it up. Handed it back to her with the cover turned up. Anna Karenina. Heavy, underlined in pencil. I didn't comment. She noticed me noticing. "Long train rides," she said. "You need something to pass the time." I nodded like I knew what she meant, even though I barely ever left town. The barista called out someone's name. We both glanced at the counter, then back at each other. She gave the faintest smile, like we just shared a secret no one else in the cafe could hear. I went back to my coffee. It was already cooling. I kept my hands around the mug anyway. "Don't you usually get the iced one?" she asked suddenly. It startled me, her remembering. The last time I'd come in, she must have been here too. Maybe more times than I realized. "I wasn't in the mood for cold today," I said. My voice sounded thin, like it wanted to hide. She didn't press. Just returned to her book. But every few minutes her eyes would lift, as though checking if I was still there. I folded the napkin into smaller and smaller squares until my fingers couldn't fold anymore. I should have stood up, left, made it easy. Instead, I stayed, as if leaving would break some balance I didn't fully understand yet. By the time I finished my coffee, she was closing her book. No hurry in the way she slid the bookmark in. She gathered her things, but slower than necessary, as if dragging out the end. She stopped at my table on her way out. Not close enough to touch, just near enough that the faint scent of her, something clean, like rain on stone, cut through the coffee air. "You didn't even ask if I finished the book," she said. I looked up. "Did you?" She tilted her head, almost like she wanted to laugh. Then shook it once. At the door, she paused. Checked her phone. For a second, I thought she'd keep walking. But my phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number. One line, "Next time, you're buying the coffee." I stared at the screen, thumb hovering but not moving. The coffee had gone cold, but I couldn't make myself get up. I told myself I wouldn't text back. Better to let it fade into one of those moments you tell yourself you imagined. But a week later, when I pushed open the cafe door again, she was there. Same table. Same book, only a few pages further along, as if she read slower than most, or maybe she reread the same lines until they gave up new meanings. She looked up, caught me hesitating, and gestured toward the chair across from her. Not a smile exactly, more like permission. "Thought you'd sworn off this place," she said. I tried, I admitted, sliding into the chair. The other cafes feel loud. That's the trick. You come here when you don't want to be noticed. She tapped the rim of her cup. Though I think you've ruined that for me. The line should have been light, but there was something under it. Something that made me glance at her hands. She wasn't wearing a ring. I already knew that, but I checked anyway. She noticed. She always seemed to notice. My husband used to hate this place, she said suddenly. Not rehearsed, more like the words surprised her as they came out. Too quiet, he'd say. He liked sports bars, noise, crowds. I came here alone. She sipped her tea. Didn't look at me while she said it, as if to keep the memory from turning into a confession. I should have nodded, offered sympathy, something. Instead I asked, and now? Her eyes found mine. Calm, almost steady. Now I come here even more. We let the silence work. A soft hum from the espresso machine filled the gap. I folded the edge of my napkin again, but this time, she reached over and stilled my hand with her fingers. Just for a second. Enough to make my skin burn. You do that when you're nervous, she said. I wanted to say I wasn't, but the words caught. I thought of telling her I lived in the upstairs flat of her house, that I sometimes paused at the bottom of the stairs when I heard her moving around, debating if I should knock on her door. I thought of telling her I noticed how she set 2 mugs out on the counter sometimes, then put one back, as if correcting herself. But I said none of that. Instead, I asked about her book. And she answered with half-interest, like she knew the question wasn't really about Tolstoy. When the barista called out another order, she shifted in her chair. The air seemed heavier. You're too young, she said quietly, almost like she was talking to herself. I swallowed. Too young for what? She shook her head, not answering, but her hand brushed mine again when she reached for her bag. A touch so casual anyone watching wouldn't have noticed. But to me, it felt like a secret had just been planted between us, growing roots in silence. It started with something ordinary. She asked if I could help carry a box upstairs, books she didn't want to drag up on her own. Saturday afternoon, sunlight pouring through the stairwell windows, dust floating like it had been waiting for the moment. The box wasn't heavy, but I made it look like it was. Some reflex. She watched, amused, leaning against the wall with her arms folded. You're stronger than you look, she said. I'll take that as a compliment. Her smile flickered, quick, almost guilty. She gestured toward the top landing, and I set the box down just outside her door. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and whatever perfume clung to her sweater. Inside her apartment, a lamp was on even though it was still daylight. A mug sat half-finished on the table. Another one, empty, beside it. I caught myself staring. She noticed. Sometimes I pour 2 out of habit, she said. Her voice was even, but her fingers traced the rim of the mug like she needed something to do with them. I wanted to ask, about her husband, about how long ago, but the words jammed in my throat. Instead, I said, do you need help with the rest of the boxes? There aren't any more. She gave a small laugh. That was the only one. Silence. Too long. My hands found my pockets. She leaned against the doorframe, blocking the way back down, though I don't think she meant to. You should probably go, she said at last. I nodded. But neither of us moved. From downstairs, the front door opened. A voice called out, a neighbor, greeting someone, feet shuffling on the mat. The sound cut through the air like a warning. She stepped aside quickly, letting me pass. Our shoulders brushed. Too light, too fast, but enough to leave a mark. On the stairs, I heard her close her door. Not a slam, just careful, deliberate. That night, I sat at my desk, phone face up. Thought about texting her, then typed out a dozen messages I deleted before sending. The next day, at the cafe, she was there again. Not reading this time. Just stirring her tea, slow circles. You didn't say thank you, she murmured when I sat down. For what? For carrying the box. She met my eyes, steady this time. I started to answer, but the barista set down my coffee too hard, spilling a little on the saucer. The interruption broke the thread. When I looked back, she was watching me, lips parted like she was about to say something she'd regret. The silence stretched. Her hand slid just close enough to mine on the table that if I moved even an inch, our fingers would touch. I didn't move. Neither did she. Her breath caught, barely audible. Then she pushed back her chair, sudden, sharp. I should go. She stood. I stood too, reflex. For a second we hovered, half a step closer than polite, half a word away from saying something final. But she turned, walked out. Left the tea half finished. I sat down again, hands flat on the table, knowing if I'd leaned forward just once, the line would already be crossed. It was late afternoon when I saw her outside the house. She was sitting on the low brick wall by the garden, jacket pulled around her shoulders. A grocery bag rested beside her feet. I slowed my steps, unsure if I should keep walking past or stop. She looked up before I decided. You're back early. Class was cancelled. I gestured at the bag. Need help? She shook her head. I only bought the basics. Bread. Milk. A pause. Wine. I sat down anyway. The bricks were still warm from the sun. For a while we watched a neighbor's kid chase a ball across the street. The air smelled faintly of cut grass and exhaust. I saw you with someone yesterday, she said suddenly. Not accusing, just flat. I blinked. Who? A girl. At the cafe. I thought back, just a classmate waving hello on my way out. I hadn't even remembered until now. She's no one, I said. Her jaw tightened, just a fraction. She turned her face away. You don't have to explain. You're young. That's what you do, you meet people. The words were calm, but her hands told on her. She kept smoothing the corner of the grocery receipt poking from the bag, folding it into a neat edge, over and over. Something in my chest twisted. I wasn't meeting her. She gave a short laugh, almost a scoff. And if you were? What difference would it make? I should have let it drop. But I didn't. It would make a difference to me. Her eyes flicked to mine, startled. The kind of look someone gives when they've been caught feeling something they'd promised themselves they wouldn't. We sat there too long, the space between us tight with things unsaid. Finally she exhaled. You make this complicated. I'm not trying to. Her voice softened, almost a whisper. You remind me what it felt like to be wanted. Before everything turned into habit and silence. She stopped herself, closed her mouth like she regretted letting it out. I had no idea what to do with my hands. They stayed flat on my knees. My heart was racing, but I kept my eyes on hers, because looking away felt like lying. I don't want to be a mistake for you, she said. Or worse, for myself. The sun slipped behind a roofline, throwing half her face into shadow. She didn't blink. I almost told her I thought about her at night, about the way her hand had brushed mine in the cafe. I almost said I'd never meant for this to happen, but I couldn't imagine wanting anything else now. Instead, I said nothing. She reached down, lifted the bag, stood. For a second her hand hovered above my shoulder, fingers curved, almost touching. Then she let it drop to her side. "Thank you for sitting with me," she said, voice steady again. And she walked inside. I stayed on the wall until the streetlights flickered on, every unspoken word circling in my head like moths that refused to land. For 3 days, she wasn't at the cafe. I told myself it didn't matter. People have lives. People get busy. But by the 4th day, when I pushed the door open and saw her table empty again, something inside me stuttered. I sat down anyway. Ordered the same coffee. Tried to read, but the words blurred. My phone sat on the table, face up, blank. On the 5th day, I skipped the cafe. Walked the long way home. When I reached the house, her curtains were drawn. The light under her door upstairs, gone. That night, I almost knocked. I even stood outside her apartment for a few seconds, pretending to check my phone, listening for movement inside. Nothing. I turned back before my knuckles touched the wood. The next morning, a delivery truck pulled up. A man carried a small box to her door. She answered, hair tied back, no makeup. She looked tired. She caught me watching from the landing below. "Morning," I said, too casually. She hesitated before replying. "Morning." Then she closed the door gently, almost apologetically. Later, I found the empty wine bottle in the recycling bin outside. It was a week before I saw her at the cafe again. She came in late, not with a book but with a folder, papers sticking out. She looked different, focused, almost brisk. She sat at her usual table but didn't look for me. I went over anyway. "You've been gone." She didn't meet my eyes. "Work. Life." I wanted to ask if she'd been avoiding me, but the question stuck in my throat. She leafed through the papers, pen tapping against the edge of the folder. Finally, she said, "My daughter's coming to stay. Just for a few weeks." I blinked. She'd never mentioned a child. "She's older than you," she added, with a small, sharp smile that didn't reach her eyes. The words landed like a wall between us. I nodded slowly, as if it was nothing, but my chest felt hollow. We sat there in silence, my coffee cooling untouched. She signed a paper, tucked it back into the folder. Her hand brushed the mug, then pulled away quickly, like the warmth burned. "I shouldn't," she started, then stopped. Shook her head. "I shouldn't be here." I leaned forward, wanting to stop her from leaving again, but my voice failed. She closed the folder, gathered her things. At the door, she glanced back. Just once. Then she left. The chair across from me stayed empty. That night, I typed a message, "Do you want me to stay away? Or do you want me to stay?" I stared at the words for a long time. My thumb hovered over send. Then I locked the screen. Left the message unsent. And the silence stretched on. It was raining the night I found her on the porch. She wasn't waiting for me, not exactly. Just standing there with her arms folded tight, watching the street as the drops hit the railing. A lamp glowed behind her in the hallway, throwing her face into soft shadow. I slowed when I saw her. Thought about slipping upstairs without a word. But she turned before I could. "You're late," she said. I shrugged. "Got caught in it. You should have brought an umbrella. You didn't either." That earned me the faintest smile, the kind that comes when you're too tired to resist. She shifted slightly, enough to make space for me on the porch. I stepped up beside her. The rain was steady, not heavy, just enough to drown the silence we carried. For a long time, we said nothing. Then she sighed. My daughter left yesterday, she said. Back to her job, her life. I nodded, unsure what to do with the relief that flickered through me. She leaned against the railing, eyes fixed on the wet street. She asked about you, she added. That startled me. What did you say? That you were the tenant upstairs. Quiet. Polite. She paused. Nothing else. I swallowed. And is that all I am? Her head turned. Her eyes met mine, sharp and uncertain. The rain tapped against the wood between us. You know it isn't, she said finally. Her voice was soft, but the weight of it made my chest tighten. The word sat between us, dangerous and fragile. I wanted to reach for her. Instead, I stuffed my hands deeper in my pockets. Then why do you keep pulling away? Because I'm supposed to. Her voice broke, just a little. Because I'm older, and I should know better. Because I don't want to watch you regret me. The porch light buzzed. A car passed, tires hissing on wet pavement. You think I don't regret enough already? I said, quieter than I meant to. Her breath hitched. She closed her eyes, shaking her head like she couldn't bear to look at me. I thought she'd walk inside, leave me there with nothing. Instead, she turned back. Stepped closer. Her hand lifted, hesitant, then rested against my arm. Light. Careful. Like if she pressed too hard, the moment would shatter. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. Neither do I. For a second, neither of us moved. Just the rain, the porch light, her hand warm against me. I thought about every silence, every empty chair, every unsent message. All the weight of almosts. Then I let my hand cover hers. Not pulling, not pushing. Just still. She exhaled, a sound almost like surrender. And in the quiet, she said, okay. Life didn't change all at once. It never does. Some mornings, we still passed each other in the hallway without more than a nod. Some evenings, I heard her moving upstairs, footsteps tracing familiar routes, the sound stopping outside her kitchen like she was thinking about calling me and decided against it. But little things shifted. She started leaving the porch light on when she knew I'd be back late. I started bringing her coffee from the cafe, black, always, though sometimes she let me slide the cup toward her without comment. Once, I found her old bookmark left in my bag, though I didn't remember her slipping it there. We didn't talk about what it meant. Not directly. The words felt unnecessary, too fragile. What we had wasn't built on declarations, anyway. It was built on pauses. On remembering. Like the time we sat on the bench by the park, the one where she'd once tried to fold herself into silence. A neighbor walked by, waved. She waved back, calm, unhurried. For the first time, I realized she wasn't pulling away anymore. She was just, there. With me. Or the morning I caught her in the kitchen, barefoot, kettle whistling. She glanced at me, hair falling loose from its clip, and without asking, poured a second mug of tea. Not coffee this time. Tea. You're converting me, I said. She raised an eyebrow. You'll never give up coffee. Maybe not. I leaned against the counter. But I'll drink yours. She laughed quietly, shaking her head, and slid the mug across. We drank without speaking. It was enough. Months later, we found ourselves back at the cafe where it began. Same corner table. Same hum of machines and spoons clinking against ceramic. She ordered tea. I ordered coffee. The waitress asked if we wanted anything else. We both said no at the same time. We caught each other's eyes and held them, and for once, neither of us looked away first. Her hand rested on the table, fingers tapping against the wood in that absent way she did when thinking. I placed mine over hers. Not as a question this time. Just as a fact. She didn't move it. The moment wasn't grand. No one applauded. No lightning struck. Just the quiet recognition that something had rooted between us and stayed. Later, when we walked back home under the dim street lamps, I realized it was exactly 8:47 p.m., the time she used to close her book at the cafe, the time I'd first thought of following her out the door and hadn't. This time, I was beside her. She glanced over, caught me looking at the glowing numbers on my phone. "What?" "Nothing," I said. Then, softer, "Just, the time." She understood. I could tell by the way her hand slipped into mine, steady, unhurried. We kept walking, the street quiet around us, the silence no longer something to escape. And for the first time, it felt like we'd arrived.